Do you believe in justice? What happens when a federal prosecutor faces injustice right in the courtroom? Join the story of Amara Khan in Atlanta, where a seemingly simple court hearing reveals a disturbing truth about a powerful judge. Will Amara dare to stand up against the system to reclaim fairness? Follow the story to discover this dramatic journey. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out. The clock read 8:42 a.m. as Amara Khan parked her car in the lot outside the city courthouse in Atlanta, Georgia. The gentle golden morning sunlight streamed onto the building's facade, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Amara, an elegant and confident federal prosecutor, stepped out of her car with a slight sense of urgency. Today was supposed to be a straightforward morning, resolving a property tax issue for her grandmother's house, the foundation of her childhood. However, an urgent phone call about a human trafficking case had delayed her. Approaching the courthouse steps, a message from her assistant reminded her of Judge Vance's strictness. Amara sighed, slipped her phone into her briefcase, and entered the cool interior of the courthouse, determined to handle this quickly and return to her important work. The large wooden doors closed behind her with a soft thud. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was cool and still, a stark contrast to the bustle outside. Fluorescent lights on the ceiling cast pale streaks across the worn marble floor. Amara quickly followed the signs to courtroom 204. The narrow hallway leading there was quiet, broken only by the hurried footsteps of a few passers-by. She caught glimpses of tense, worried faces, each person carrying their own story to the threshold of justice. The courtroom was already quite full when Amara entered. She found a seat near the back and quietly observed. Judge Eleanor Vance had not yet appeared. The room had a dignified yet somewhat dated feel, with rows of wooden benches stained by time and pale beige walls. The scent of old paper and a faint hint of familiar floor cleaner filled Amara's nostrils. Finally, the door behind the judge's bench opened. Judge Vance entered, her demeanor imposing and formal. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her piercing blue eyes swept quickly across the room. A hush fell as everyone rose in unison. Amara stood as well, straightening her posture. Judge Vance sat down, and the court clerk, Sarah Miller, announced, "Please be seated." Amara noticed a few individuals arriving late after the session had begun. A middle-aged man furtively found a seat, and a young woman slipped in quietly. Judge Vance seemed to pay little attention to their tardy arrivals. At 9:15 a.m., Amara's name was called. She adjusted her suit jacket, took a deep breath, and walked towards the lectern, trying to maintain her composure despite her tardiness. As she approached, Judge Vance looked up, her gaze scrutinizing and her displeasure evident. As Amara approached the lectern, she faintly heard a whisper from the gallery, "Another one late." No respect for anyone. The sharp, unpleasant tone of a middle-aged white woman seated nearby did not escape Amara's notice. She tried to ignore it, focusing on Judge Vance. "You're late, Ms. Khan," Judge Vance stated, her voice cold and echoing through the room. "Do you believe this court's time is less valuable than your own?" Her eyes scrutinized Amara from head to toe, her gaze seeming to convey more than just displeasure at the tardiness. Amara kept her voice steady. "Your Honor, I apologize for the delay. I was dealing with an urgent federal matter." Judge Vance cut her off, her tone unwavering. "Excuses hold little weight here. Ms. Khan, this court operates with discipline. If you cannot adhere to that, perhaps you should reconsider your schedule." A soft snicker reached Amara's ears from the first row, where a white man sat. He muttered to the person next to him, just loud enough to be heard, "Federal this, federal that, probably just making things up. You are fined $750 for contempt of court," Judge Vance declared, not making eye contact with Amara. Amara subtly clenched her hands, striving to keep her expression neutral. Others were late. Why didn't she say anything to them? She wondered, a sense of injustice rising within her. As Amara turned to return to her seat, she overheard a hushed conversation behind her. "See? People like them always think they can do whatever they want," a deep male voice said. "Exactly. No respect for the rules," a woman's voice replied, laced with agreement. Sitting down, Amara felt the scrutinizing and judgmental gazes of many in the room fixed upon her. She knew, for some present, the color of her skin was likely reason enough for them to believe she didn't deserve equal treatment. The feeling of injustice tightened around Amara's heart, but at the same time, it ignited a simmering resolve within her. I won't let this slide. As Amara stood to present her case regarding the property tax issue, she tried to keep her voice steady and professional, despite the lingering stares and hushed whispers. She opened her file, pointing out the clear discrepancies in the new tax assessment compared to previous years. Your Honor, she stated, her tone calm yet firm. As the documents show, my family's property tax assessment has remained stable for the past 5 years. The sudden 30% increase without any notification or reasonable explanation is completely unfounded. Judge Vance leaned back in her chair, her expression dismissive. I will review your documents later. Ms. Khan, the primary issue here is your lack of respect for this court. Your Honor, Amara replied, striving to keep the frustration from her voice. I have explained the reason for my tardiness. It was an urgent federal matter concerning a human trafficking case. I believe that preventing such heinous crimes is also a top priority of the law. A soft scoff echoed from the gallery. An older white man shook his head, muttering just loud enough for those nearby to hear. Human trafficking. What a load of nonsense. Just trying to get out of trouble. Judge Vance seemed to either not hear or deliberately ignore the comment. Your priorities are irrelevant to this hearing. Ms. Khan, the law is the law, and punctuality is part of it. But Your Honor, Amara couldn't contain herself any longer, a touch of exasperation creeping into her voice. I witnessed other individuals arriving later than I did, yet they received no reprimand or fine. Are the rules of this court applied fairly to everyone? An immediate, heavy silence fell over the courtroom. Judge Vance sat up straight, her face flushing. Are you questioning the fairness of this court, Ms. Khan? Her voice was like ice. I will not tolerate such insinuations in my courtroom. I am merely asking about what I have observed. Your Honor, Amara retorted, trying to keep her voice from trembling. The disparity in treatment is quite evident. Is it because I am a federal prosecutor? Or is there some other reason for this discrepancy? Enough. Judge Vance slammed her gavel down on the bench, the sharp crack shattering the tense atmosphere. You have crossed a line. Ms. Khan, this is your final warning. Focus on your case, or I will have you removed from this courtroom. Amara stood silent for a moment, meeting Judge Vance's gaze directly. The blatant injustice and the judge's clear hostility left her unable to remain silent. Your Honor, she said, her voice now resolute and devoid of fear. As a federal prosecutor, I have a duty to ensure that justice is applied fairly to all. What I have witnessed today suggests otherwise, and I will not stand idly by. As Amara finished speaking, a silence descended upon the courtroom, so thick it could be cut with a knife. Judge Vance stared at Amara, her initial shock morphing into intense anger. Her face flushed crimson, and her knuckles whitened as she gripped the gavel. You just said what? Judge Vance gritted out, her voice trembling with fury. You dare accuse this court? I am not accusing, Your Honor, Amara replied calmly but firmly. I am merely stating what I have observed. The clear disparity in treatment not only towards myself but also towards others in this room. Her gaze swept across the gallery, meeting the sympathetic eyes of a few people of color. Suddenly, the court bailiff, David Chen, a tall and stern-faced Asian man, strode quickly to stand beside Amara's lectern. Your Honor, he said, his voice deep and clear, I have witnessed everything. I concur with Ms. Khan's observations. There have been differences in how the judge has treated parties in this courtroom. David Chen's words struck the courtroom like a thunderbolt. Judge Vance's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at him. Sarah Miller, the court clerk, also looked up at David with astonishment. A ripple of hushed murmurs spread through the room. Those who had previously made disparaging remarks about Amara began to look uneasy. The elderly white woman who had muttered earlier fell silent, a worried expression now etched on her face. The white man who had snickered also lowered his head. Chen, what are you saying? Judge Vance stammered, her usual commanding tone faltering. Do you know who you're speaking to? Your Honor, David Chen replied, his voice still calm but resolute. I am an officer of this court, and I have a duty to speak the truth when I witness injustice. I have worked here for many years, and I cannot ignore what has been transpiring." Just then, Marcus Jones, Amara's superior at the U.S. Attorney's Office, unexpectedly entered the courtroom with two other individuals. He walked directly towards the lectern, his expression stern. "Judge Vance," he stated, his voice firm, "I am Marcus Jones, Chief of the U.S. Attorney's Office. We have received a report from Federal Prosecutor Amara regarding the events that have transpired in this courtroom. The judge's conduct has raised serious concerns about fairness and the integrity of this court." Judge Vance's face paled drastically. She looked from David Chen to Marcus Jones, and then to Amara, a look of horror dawning in her eyes. Mr. Jones, what are you doing?" Judge Vance attempted to maintain a semblance of composure. "Federal Prosecutor," Judge Vance whispered, as if speaking to herself. She swallowed hard, trying to regain her composure but failing. I had no idea. We are performing our duty, Your Honor," Marcus Jones replied, "and we will ensure that all allegations of misconduct are thoroughly investigated." He turned to the two individuals who had accompanied him. Giving a subtle signal, they moved quickly towards Judge Vance. "Your Honor," one of them stated, his voice formal but authoritative, "we have a warrant for your immediate suspension, pending the investigation." Judge Vance's mouth hung open, speechless. She looked around the room, her eyes pleading, but found no support from anyone. Those who had previously shown disdain for Amara were now silent, their heads bowed, avoiding eye contact. They had witnessed the consequences for abusing power and demeaning others based on prejudiced beliefs. Amara lifted her head high, speaking clearly to everyone present. "It all starts with how we treat the people who come into our courtrooms. It's about fairness, dignity, and respect, and most importantly, it's about ensuring that every person, no matter who they are, what their skin color is, or what their circumstances may be, knows that they have value." In the end, the truth had been revealed, and those who had scorned Amara were forced to witness the downfall of the very person they had perhaps relied upon to validate their own biased views. The story of Amara Khan's journey is a societal call for fairness. If you find this story thought-provoking and wish to spread its positive message, please click the like button. Don't hesitate to share this article with your friends and those who care, so that together we can create change.